The president, who had pushed for dialogue, however, says he will only appoint the commission once the identities of the more than 50,000 petitioners have been verified by IEBC.
Now, the county of Kuali has been in a state of dysfunction following persistent wrangles between the governor, Professor Kivutha Kibwana, and a section of county assembly members. At least 4 members of the county executive, as well as the governor, have been impeached by the county assembly.
However, the dispute is stuck in back and forth court petitions. It is not clear how long the IEBC will take to verify details of that petition.
We are following that story for you closely, and tomorrow morning on KTN Morning Express, we shall be talking to Makueni Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr.
Indeed, let's now look at other stories of the day. Joseph Nkaissery says if he is successfully appointed to head the Interior Docket, his ODM membership will not affect his decision to accept that appointment.
But will Parliament automatically approve Nkaissery's appointment? KTN's Ashamwilu reports.
As media frenzy continued over his nomination, retired Major General Joseph Nkaissery remained silent. But after getting his motherland's blessings, the Kajiado Central MP finally spoke on his nomination to take over the powerful Interior Ministry docket, and his first words were to his political party.
Kinara yetu, nitaongea na yeye ya kwamba nimepata hii kazi, lakini wale ambao wameniajiri kazi kwanza ni watu wa Kajiado Central. Ile kauli yangu ndio itakuwa final. Si ya mtu, it is General Nkaissery's decision. I want to take the job, I can take the job. If I don't want to take the job, then I don't take the job.
Careful not to preempt the next step of his nomination, Nkaissery reserved his plans for the country's deteriorating security.
If Parliament approves me and the President gives me this job, I will give my best.
Even though observers say that Nkaissery's approval by Parliament is automatic, the former military man will have to face the skeletons in his closet. When he appears before Parliament's Committee on Appointments, chaired by Speaker Justin Muturi, Nkaissery will have to eliminate the shadow of doubt cast by the TJRC report.
This is the fruit of the work.
The Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission accused Nkaissery of gross violation of human rights during a military operation in West Pokot County in 1984. In the operation dubbed Operation Nyundo, Nkaissery is named among other senior military officers accused of torture, sexual violence and murder. In the operation, soldiers are reported to have confiscated cattle which they either killed, ate or sold. A diluted version of the TJRC report was handed to President Uhuru Kenyatta, but so far, no action has been taken on it.
Hii kazi ni ngumu, lakini matumaini yangu ni kwamba tutaweza.
But all this appeared far from Nkaissery's mind as he met residents of his constituency. The attention is now on who will succeed him in Parliament if his appointment sails through.
Aspiring candidate, they have to hold their horses until I give my resignation, and then they go to Wananchi to ask for vote. And the one which Kajiado people are going to choose will work together.
Pressure over the rising insecurity now slowly shifts from State House to the 11th Parliament, a house that has also faced criticism for allegedly rubber stamping all of President Uhuru Kenyatta's nominees without proper vetting. Ashamwilu, KTN.
Right, so we're focusing on that story by Ashamwilu. On our big story, our focus is on Joseph Nkaissery, the man who's supposed to take over Joseph Olelenko's docket. And we're asking you tonight, should the TJRC report affect Nkaissery's proposed appointment?
And they tell us what you think. As always, SMS your yes or no opinion to the number 22155. You can also join that conversation online. The Twitter handle at Linda Ogutu, at Ben_Kitili, and at KTN Kenya. Shall be sampling those views during this live newscast. Mandera residents have vowed to cooperate with the government in flushing out members of Al-Shabaab and their sympathizers whom they claim are living amongst them. They spoke at a meeting held to address the runaway insecurity in the area. KTN's Ian Wafula now reports.
Al-Shabaab, watu wa Mandera wanajua Masheikhs wanajua, wazee wanajua, vijana wanajua, ladies wanajua, kila mtu anajua. Why can't we not say the truth?
Tough questions from a concerned resident coming at a time when Mandera County has witnessed 2 terror attacks in less than 2 weeks, leaving at least 64 people dead. It is these disturbing events that brought together not only the residents in the county, but also officials from the national government who hail from the area. Here, the residents expressed their displeasure of what they described as the terrorist attempts to draw lines between them and the non-residents working in the area. But even as the residents claimed that the Al-Shabaab members and sympathizers were among them, they could not hide their mistrust of the officers charged with upholding security in the area, putting them to task.
So wakati wananoa yao, hata sisi tumenoa yetu, na tutakabiliana na wao vile ifaavyo.
Muko watu 200,000 katika hii town. Mukisema hatuwezi kubali na msimame na mnajua hao watu, you can stop it. Tunaweza kuzuia.
Jukumu lako ni kusimama na kuanza kulinda nchi yako, kuanza kulinda kaunti yako, na kusema enough is enough. We've reached our elasticity limit of tolerance.
Sisi kama Wakenya tumetoka mahali mbalimbali. We are made up of 42 communities, and our strength as a country is our diversity.
And a resolution was met, one that will see the locals in Mandera work hand in hand to flush out members and sympathizers of the terror group. This, the leaders say, is the first step in restoring security in the area. Ian Wafula, KTN.
Let's stay with security matters. Families living along the Nandi-Kabras border continue to flee the hotspot zone of Kuali, where renewed tribal fighting erupted yesterday over the killing of one person a few weeks ago. Security officers today thwarted plans to torch more houses, even as tension continued to rise, with residents now staring at a possible humanitarian crisis. KTN's Francis Ontomwa tells us more.
Scampering to safety has almost become a way of life for many residents here at Kuali village since spontaneous clashes started yesterday. The torching of more than 25 houses has left many homeless and is reason enough to scare others who flee to safety. A humanitarian crisis continues to stare here at Kuali village. Most homes are now deserted and tension remains high here, even as law enforcers here pitch camp here to try and calm the situation. Kuali dispensary now turned a rescue center for those displaced from their homes. Desperate faces of mothers and children painting a picture of the rising tension.
Tujui serikali imekuwa serikali ya ukabila ama imekuwa serikali ya nini. Tuna chakula, masufuria, mahindi, kila kitu imechomelewa kwa manyumba.
Residents claim that the beheading of a man a month ago over land tussles could have reignited the simmering trouble. And apart from the burning of the houses, the assailants also set on fire huge tracts of sugarcane plantations belonging to the members of the other community.
Inaonekana ni mori, ni kiapo. Sasa ni kiapo kumaanisha bado wanakuja. Na nyimbo hizo ni wanaimba nyimbo za kusukuma, yani za mori pia.
Kenya Red Cross Society says over 200 people have been affected by the skirmishes. Security apparatus manned affairs for most part of the day, but residents also maintained vigil, most of them armed with crude weapons, just in case. Members of the two communities are now calling for quick intervention from government to calm nerves and arrest a situation that more or less talks memories of the deadly clashes witnessed here in the 90s. Francis Ontomwa, KTN, Malava.
Our man on the ground, Francis Ontomwa, will be keeping an eye on that for you now. ODM leader Raila Odinga has turned down calls to vie for the Homa Bay senatorial seat. Raila had been given 3 days by elders and leaders from Nyanza to make up his mind on whether he will take a shot at joining the Senate. He, however, says he intends to focus on preparing the party for the next general election and keeping the government on its toes.
Barely a week after the burial of Otieno Kajwang, debate about his succession picked up, but in an unlikely direction. A call for Raila Odinga to vie for the vacant seat.
If Mr. Raila Odinga is given the chance he will bring on board his wealth of experience in politics.
On Sunday, elders from Homa Bay County and South Nyanza ODM leaders took the petition to Raila's home in Bondo.
The final decision rests with none other than the Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga.
The leaders apparently gave the former Prime Minister 3 days to decide whether or not he would take up their offer. A day later, Raila Odinga had made up his mind, and it is a no.
Mimi nimetoa uamuzi kutokubali wito huo ya kugombea kiti hicho ya Homa Bay.
With the next general election 2 years away, the ODM leader says he will focus his energies on strengthening the party and keeping the government in check.
Please allow me to concentrate on your behalf on creating a party machine and a coalition partnership that can keep the government in check and advocate and promote the provisions of services to the Kenyan people.
The decision by the former Prime Minister puts to rest speculation over his candidature for the Homa Bay Senate seat. On the same podium, Raila made his announcement moments later. 4 prospective candidates, including a brother of the late Homa Bay Senator Otieno Kajwang and former MP Philip Okundi, made known their intentions to run in the Homa Bay by-election slated for the 2nd of February next year. Rita Tinina, KTN.
So Kenya is counting only 3 days to December 12th, which marks 51 years since Kenya became a republic.
And even as Kenya prepares to celebrate this key anniversary, land issues continue to take center stage across the country.
We begin our special coverage on the run-up to Jamhuri Day tonight, and our reporter Mercy Kandia brings us the story of Nandi's Talai clan, whose detention camps have since been turned into homes. Take a look.
Kenya, taifa letu tukufu, Kenya tunayoipenda. Tushangilie Kenya, taifa letu tukufu, Kenya tunayoipenda. Kenya nchi tunayoipenda.
It is a song that with every line and every beat gets Kenyans close to the feeling of freedom from colonial rule. That nostalgic feeling of hope that engulfed this nation on December 12, 1964, when Kenya finally became a republic. Incredibly, in the heart of Nandi County, however, the Talai clan are yet to celebrate, yet to be liberated 51 years later.
We have not gained that independence because of negligence.
With him are documents telling the story of a half-a-century fight for liberation. Their predicament started when the Talai resisted colonial rule. The community members were forcefully moved from their land in Tinderet and detained at Kapsisewo, surrounded by swamps infested with mosquitoes. The Talai, with inferior weapons, had resisted the British colonialists for 11 years, the longest resistance by an African community.
I think it was the fear of the colonial government. After the Nandi resistance, the colonial government now thought this was a threat. These people were a threat because they were a uniting factor. They were a uniting factor among the Nandi.
The plight of the Talai points to a much bigger problem: land. Arap Kipsogon and others have over the years communicated severally to the British government, but the response has not been great. The British government has not taken up any responsibility so far. In 1962, a discussion tabled in Parliament stated in part that in the history of African reaction to the European intrusion, normally 1 or 2 would be deported, but the whole clan of thousands were detained. A notice of motion was filed in Parliament to compensate the Samoe family.
The Honorable Jemma Kenyatta.
Yet, for 51 years, government after government, the Talai clan says it's been all talk and so little to show for it.
We have made several submissions to TRC, for example. First, we know that the land that we lost in Andes, those tea estates and so on, which later came to a lease of 999 whatever, you know, we were forcibly removed from those areas, forceful displacement of people.
The Lai-born leaders among the clan were said to have supernatural powers to predict the future.
We were stigmatized. Stigmatization in terms of the perception that, you know, colonial propaganda, the colonial propaganda that the Lai-borns were a bad people. The Lai-borns were witch doctors. Lai-born, even as recently as a few years ago, there had been murders, killings of people who have been Lai-borns in other countries, in other areas like Washingishu.
Gogo Helen Chepkwony and Mzee Kimining Birgen are the last surviving members of a group of what was dubbed the Talai 11, detained at Nkaissery, and after the colonialists left, the detention areas became home. Every year they hope that even if they never get to set foot back home, then their children will one day.
Ramanye was the longest serving detainee, and he was a friend of former president, first president Kenyatta in 1964. In fact, he gave Sambut Golobas Mange to Kenyatta as a sign of recognition. And so there was that link. And I hope maybe one day something can be done.
It is the hope of the Talai clan fighters that the younger generation will reap the fruits of the long fight for liberation and finally go where they call home. It is a fight for compensation among the Talai clan that has taken them over 50 years and counting, a fight they hope will end soon so that as the rest of the country celebrates independence, the Talai clan can also enjoy this independence. Masi Kandiye, KTN, Nkaissery, Nandi County.
Tushangilie Kenya, taifa letu tukufu, Kenya tunayoipenda.
Masekandia in Nandi County shall be weekly, our Jamhuri Day special continues all the way until Friday on Jamhuri Day. Now tonight your weekly crime series Case Files is back, and it is all about land.
Moses Olempoi was the face of a community's agitation for land rights in 2010. He was gunned down by unknown assailants.
Now, the prosecution maintains it was one of his employers who arranged for his killing. However, Eda Wanjiru, the widow of former powerful cabinet minister Mbiyu Koinange, and her co-accused insist Olempoi was killed by state operatives who wanted to buy her land and sell it for a song.
Here now is a sneak preview of that.
Mimi sikuwa na haja ya kuua marehemu. Nikiuliza akaniambia kuna wengine hapo ndani ya gari.
These big people who think they can make money in the name of poor people.
Ni jambo ambalo limefanyika tu kwa kusudi wa Masai wanyimwe haki yao.
Yule mwanaume nilihesabu risasi nikapata kama risasi 6 ilikuwa imemuingia. Na kukufa.
Our big question tonight is on Joseph Nkaissery, and we are asking you, should the TJRC report affect his proposed appointments?
That report accuses him of human rights violation. He's set to take over the interior security docket, and that is a concern for Kenyans. So that is the focus of our big question tonight. We're asking if that report should be taken into consideration. You want to support?
Chisoli Dennis says yes. How can such a report be overlooked? This is a new Kenya, remember?
Atonya Sandy says, in some democracies, the allegations by TJRC against Nkaissery are enough for him to turn down the CS offer, but not in Kenya.
Keep the SMSs and the tweets coming through. Shall be sampling some of them.
Indeed, and today is Monday, so of course we have Job Center, and tonight Abiagina will be focusing on job hunting. What do you need to equip yourself with? What should you do to make yourself above the rest? What do potential employers look for? That's coming your way on KTN Prime in just a few minutes.
Indeed, stand by for that. For now, though, we are taking a quick break, but do not go too far. We'll be back shortly. Special tips on job hunting on KTN Job Center.
You're watching KTN Prime.
Good evening and welcome to Job Center, where we talk about the trends in the market. And today we'll be talking about job hunting and how you can place yourself for the employment market. And with us in studio is the Vice Chancellor of Management University of Africa, Dr. Nicholas Leting. But just before we start our interview, we went to the streets and we gathered some of the views of the young people of what they have to say when it comes to looking for a job. Let's listen in.
Actually, it's not easy. It's not easy to get a job as a young person. Because when you look, for example, the course I'm taking, interior design, many people will want an experienced person, a very experienced person. But as for me, I might have the skill, but when I go for example, for an interview, somebody might ask me, what work have you ever done? What work have you done, or which another work, or what experience do you have? Yeah.
The reason as to why we young people don't get jobs is our mentality. The mentality that we are going to get easy things. We just sit at home, wait for someone to call you, then tells you come for a job. That's not going to happen.
The challenges is we face most in Kenya. This is Kenya, obviously. There's corruption and favorism. You must be known before you get that job, or you should. We call it connections. Lazima ukuwe na connections ndo upate your job.
Well, as you've heard it there, most young people are saying getting a job is not easy. And to discuss these issues with us once again is the Vice Chancellor of Management University of Africa, Dr. Nicholas Leting. Karibu.
Thank you very much.
Maybe just to get straight into the interview, the young people are saying getting a job is not easy because the employer wants you to have a certain number of skill sets. They want you to have experience. What would you make of this, and what should the young people take into consideration when they are writing their CVs?
Thank you very much. The job market is very competitive at the moment, and every year Kenya produces almost over 40,000 graduates who come from various universities and with different qualifications, and sometimes because of the competition in the market, only a few of them, a percentage of them will get an opportunity to be employed. But one of the things that I've seen with my experience in the private sector and running institutions is that graduates who are looking for jobs should be able to have a total package of a person. The graduates should consider themselves as a product that is out for sale, and therefore should be able to market his or her services competitively like a product is sold. In other words, some of the skill sets that are required are very good interpersonal skills of the person going out for a job market. You need to know how to relate very well with other people. So issues of emotional intelligence, issues of social intelligence.
When you say emotional intelligence, yes, can you break this down for us?
Thank you. Emotional intelligence means that the person should be able to withstand pressures. In other words, you should not cry when you are told something, maybe sad news, you start breaking down and crying. And therefore, for one to be emotionally intelligent, it means they know how to fit into a situation. In other words, they should be able to relate to the senior most people and even junior people in the organization. And some of the other things that are required is communication skills. There are many people who complete university and they may not even be able to write a letter of application for a job. And even when they apply and they have been shortlisted for an interview, the way they respond to interview questions leaves a lot to be desired, because it exposes them to a situation where they don't know how to respond to questions. For example, they can be asked a question like, tell us about yourself. Somebody says, I am the 10th born of maybe 15 children. Nobody's asking you about that. All we need is how have you been trained?
You need to market yourself.
You need to market yourself. In other words, you are saying, what are you bringing on board to this organization? And the applicant or the interviewee should have done enough research about the organization. What is its vision? What is its mission? That person needs to do enough background check about the company that they are working for and why that company is at the moment recruiting, because if it's a new position, then there is a way in which you should package yourself. But if it's an old position, an existing position, the applicant should also be able to establish and find out why is that position now vacant after it was filled up. So some of the things that the graduate needs to do is to be able to know how to read widely, understand about the current affairs in the country, even globally, and also understand about the specific profession that they are in. You say somebody is an accountant.
Maybe what are some of the key issues that an employer would be looking for when they are doing an interview with a graduate?
Employers are very keen at looking at somebody who is going to add value to their company. How do they add value? They add value in the way they present themselves, in terms of communication. You expect somebody who is also have good etiquette, somebody who is able to keep time. You don't want to employ somebody who will come to the office late and give an excuse of I live in very far place from Nairobi or whatever office it is. And therefore, employers will be looking at an individual who is able to respond to circumstances and very flexible without being rigid, because at the moment the market is very saturated with manpower, but we require the right manpower. We require people with the right skills that can be employed and be deployed to the right place at the right time, whether at night or during the day, because that kind of skill is quite a number of, from my experience, I see quite a number of people who just need a job and to solve their problems, like personal problems of paying school fees for their sisters and brothers, siblings, and yet they are not coming to provide a solution to the company that they have applied for.
So where is the missing link? Because you're seeing the universities have trained a graduate, you go to the job market. Where is the missing link?
There's been a disconnect between the industry and the university. In other words, what happens is that there is no situation that the industry comes together with the academia to interact and say, this time around we are looking for maybe 2,000 engineers or telecommunication experts. So what the academic team do is to produce people theoretically, but the industry requires people with experience, practical knowledge. Can you imagine a situation where you hire an automotive engineer who does not even know how to drive a vehicle? So you require somebody who is able to understand things. And some of the universities that are doing now is we are focusing on mixing or in blending theory and practice in the universities, so that when a student goes out, he is able to fit into the market faster. But in some other universities, like for example the public universities where many students are there, it is very difficult for a student to even get access to a computer lab. So there may be one computer lab that accommodates 10,000 students. How many students will be able to have that opportunity? But most private universities like ours, we have a small class size where the lecturer and the facilitator is able to interact. We also do invite industry speakers who will come and share their experiences about what is required in the industry and how to navigate the market when the people go out. And so our employability rates in our university is almost 100%, because these are people who are interacting with industry speakers and experts.
And just to barge in, I'm meant to understand that graduates from private institutions are more employable than graduates from public institutions. How true is this? As you also give us your winding thoughts.
What is happening now is that there's a lot of competition in the market. As we speak now, we have 68 universities and colleges in Kenya. Not to mention other universities around the East African community. And so, to distinguish themselves, most private universities have tended to go for smaller, fewer student numbers. After all, you know, the school fees, the university fees is slightly more in the private university, and somebody is paying for it. And so what happens is, these particular institutions in the private sector try to attract them and retain the students, because now if you don't do that, the students run away to other private and public universities. And so my take on this is that private universities have a lot of investments they have made to try to win to themselves students to study in the universities, and also to produce a whole person, somebody who is emotionally intelligent, some socially intelligent, and able to communicate effectively and be able to present their views in a manner that is required by the market.
Thank you very much, Daktari.
Thank you.
Well, we've been speaking to Dr. Nicholas Leting, the Vice-Chancellor of Management University of Africa, and his message to the young people is that for you to be able to break through the job market, you need to have good interpersonal skills as well as good communication skills, and above all, the confidence. Well, that brings us to the end of this week's edition of Job Center. Coming up next is Business News. Good evening, and you're just in time for the day's business news. My name is Abi Agina. Africa needs to redesign her taxation systems if she wants to achieve broad economic growth. Speaking during the ongoing Forum on Inclusive Economies, government and private sector leaders say the current tax mechanisms have been a hindrance to development. Here's KTN's Charles Gitonga with more on that story.
In 2013, Africa's gross domestic product grew by 5.6% to $2.39 trillion. This is expected to advance at a rate of 6% per year between 2014 and 2023, cementing the narrative that Africa is on the rise. However, this rise is not trickling down to the entire population, leading to an ever-widening gap between the rich and the poor.
7 out of 10 of the world's most unequal countries in the world are in sub-Saharan Africa. So, what good is all this growth if it isn't shared among everyone?
One of the reasons for this imbalance is the taxation regimes adopted throughout the continent, which allow the rich to get tax exemptions, while the poor pay tax even for the very basic commodities.
We need to have our taxes to be more progressive. For example, redesigning our VAT laws to limit exemptions that benefit usually the rich, while ensuring that items consumed by the poor are exempt.
Kenya has been undertaking reforms aimed at developing progressive policy on tax. Some of these include exempting individuals earning a monthly wage of less than 10,000 shillings from income tax, levying excess duty on luxury items, and exempting value-added tax on basic commodities like milk and bread. However, developing economic inclusiveness goes beyond mere taxation. Africa must also develop infrastructure that link producers and markets and provide connectivity to the entire population. At the moment, the continent has an infrastructure deficit of $93 billion, with Kenya having a deficit of $2 billion.
We're increasing infrastructure spending,
which will spur regional and economic inclusion for the people of this region. Trade integration is essential for Africa to realize its full economic potential, to participate in the global economy, and to share in the benefits of an increasingly connected global marketplace.
So far, Africa's growth has been shaped by the Millennium Development Goals. However, the next phase of growth will be determined by how wealth and opportunities are distributed to avail socio, political, and financial inclusion of all. Charles Gitonga, KTN.
Well, the National Treasury has taken on power generating firm KTN following reports that it plans to scale back the generation of the 5,000 megawatts power. KTN says the scheduled production is overstated and could make electricity expensive, but the National Treasury insists that it's all systems go on the ambitious project. I was at Treasury, and this is what the Cabinet Secretary had to say.
The government will not relent on its quest to deliver cheap and affordable energy to Kenyans. This is the statement that the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury made today as he signed the deal that will see the country get an additional 310 megawatts of power from the 52 billion shilling Lake Turkana wind power project, which will come online by 2016. The declaration comes as the debate on the viability of the country's power generation plans came to the fore amid claims that it was not in tandem with power demand. electricity generating firm KTN has said that the 5,000 megawatt power generation plan is overstated and the power projected to be generated is way above the demand the country requires. But Rotich was quick to dismiss the reports.
We are on track.
KTN has announced plans to scale down Kenya's power generation target of 5,000 megawatts amid criticism by power economists.
I don't think there is plans to scale it down. We will continue to work towards achieving this. In fact, the Ministry of Energy now is working on a demand analysis to look at the demand for all these 5,000 megawatts.
The government has previously stuck to its guns despite persistent warnings about possible overproduction, arguing that there would be enough market for the extra power, including export channels to neighboring countries and connection of more homes to the grid.
There is quite a huge demand. I said the other time that the SGR alone probably may demand about 500 megawatts.
But KTN says excess supply could lead to very expensive tariffs. The Ministry of Energy has set a timeline of 2017 to generate 5,000 megawatts, mainly from renewable sources like geothermal, wind and solar. Presently, locally installed power generation capacity stands at about 1,955 megawatts. And as the back and forth continues, all Kenyans will be keen on is when they will get cheap and affordable energy, even as the government carries on with its power development plans across the country.
All we had on business news, but let's take a look at the financial report.
Financial report.
Welcome back. Let's take a look at what's happening in the sports world, starting with handball. And Jamal Mbeze was instrumental in handing his team victory as DRC Police beat Kusa 32-27 in the Eastern Central Africa Handball Championships. In the women's category, Nairobi Water were 34-16 victors over Sparkles at the Nyao National Stadium.
Police from Congo made clear the intentions of winning this year's championship as they stepped into the battle zone to face their opponents Kusa. The home side drew first blood through Peter Andwaye, but that was not enough as their opponents seemed to have enough in their armor, with Jamal Mbaze scoring 8 to put his side ahead before the breather. In the second half, Andrew Ndena scored 8 goals as Kusa tried to win the tie, but Jamal Mbaze continued to sparkle as he scored 7, giving his side a deserved 32-27 win. With their sights set on winning the league, the servicemen ruled missed chances as well as poor officiating.
Wasiweke waarbitre wale wako wanapiga kwa roho. Kama wanapiga kwa roho ni mvae, wapige kwa akili.
Matumaini yetu ni ya kuja kama wakubwa polisi ya RDC walitupa nguvu la kusema tukuje na kikombe kule RDC.
In another match, Strathmore University suffered a 23-29 loss at the hands of Prisons from Uganda. In the ladies category, Merina Andala was instrumental as Nairobi Water flashed down their rival Sparkles to win the tie 34-16. The competition continues tomorrow at the same venue. Robinson Okenye, KTN Sports.
The Kenya sitting volleyball team hopes to emulate their counterparts who have conquered the region in various championships. Their biggest challenge, however, is lack of recognition by the sports stakeholders. The team continues to live in the shadows of their able-bodied counterparts, and they hope the government can chip in and assist them. The team is preparing for an Africa Championships and was busy putting up final touches before embarking on their selection. The National League is coming to an end, and they hope to select a strong team to represent the country in the championships.
Right, so we're almost done, but let's look at our big question tonight. We're asking you, should the TJRC report affect Nkaissery's proposed appointment? That report accused him of human rights violation.
And of course, vetting by Parliament resumes shortly. And here are some of your comments. Titus Okeko says, Kenyans need a clean person. His past acts will affect his acceptability, which is key to his success at the security docket.
The consulting chamber says TJRC report was never adopted by Parliament, hence it's unprocedural for Nkaissery to be judged on it.
Ken Leshan Sankale Difa says, we cannot keep on looking back, forget about the report, and we move on with Nkaissery.
At Chepolet, Crop says, why should government use millions on commissions whose reports cannot be honored? For courts lost lives in 1984 in that Nyundo operation.
Meshak Nyaundi says, no, he is not the only one in that report. Others are even serving various seats, yet they are not clean.
Finally, Simiyu says, yes, it should. In Kenya, merit and integrity count for nothing. Appointments made on political and personal interest.
And finally, Hussein Abdullah says, yes, integrity of persons who hold major office matters. Such allegations are not a light issue.
Those are your opinions. We thank you for writing in, for being part of KTN Prime.
Many thanks for being with us and for joining us on the program. My name is Ben Kitili. Remember, Case Files begins shortly.
I'm Linda Gutu. Good night.